Welcome back to Richard Will's Vault, where horsepower never dies. I'm Richard Vault 4, your tour guide through chrome dreams and gasoline symphonies. Today we're diving into the 1971 Ford Mustang Mach 1, a car so bold it makes modern rides look like they skipped leg day, because modern cars forgot what muscle means. In 1971, the Ford Mustang decided it was tired of being the scrappy street brawler and instead wanted to upgrade its wardrobe to something more, let's say, executive muscle. The result? A car that looked meaner, stood broader, and carried itself with a bit more swagger, like the Mustang had been hitting the buffet line a little too often. The transformation brought roughly 400 extra pounds to the frame, pushing the curb weight to around 3,300 pounds. That's not just a few cheeseburgers. It's like the Mustang showed up to the party wearing ankle weights and dared everyone to race anyway. Lee Iacocca, the man who birthed the original Mustang, wasn't shy about his thoughts either. He famously called the new version a, quote, fat pig, and honestly, you can kind of see where he was coming from. The sleek, nimble pony had grown into more of a heavyweight prize fighter. It still packed plenty of muscle, but it was now throwing its punches from a bigger, bulkier frame. Imagine a gymnast who suddenly bulked up into a linebacker. That's the 1971 Mustang in a nutshell. Still stylish, still powerful, but undeniably heavier on its feet. Sometimes evolution adds muscle, but sometimes it just adds mass. This year's Mustang Mach 1 didn't just show up to the muscle car party, it walked in wearing aviators, a leather jacket, and carrying its own soundtrack. For this model year, Ford trimmed the standard goodies a bit, but the essentials still screamed performance. Every Mach 1 came with the sports roof body style, proudly carrying its unique 05 VIN code and 63R body tag. Out front, a color-keyed urethane bumper acted like a jawline chiseled from Detroit steel, complemented by a honeycomb grille with sport lamps that looked like the car was squinting at you in disdain. Decals, stripes, and accent paint, available in argent or black, gave it that unmistakable Mach 1 identity, while details like the pop-open gas cap and dual racing mirrors tied the whole look together. But the crown jewel was the hood. Dual scopes made it instantly recognizable, like a heavyweight boxer flexing before the bell. Standard for most engines, the scoops became functional with the ram air option, complete with vacuum-controlled doors, a fiberglass plenum, and a rubber seal air filter housing that funneled cool air straight into the carburetor. Tossing chrome hood locks, two-tone paint, and ram air decals in this Mustang wasn't just breathing, it was inhaling intimidation. When it came to engines, the 1971 Mustang Mach 1 didn't just give you choices, it gave you an all-you-can-eat buffet of Detroit iron. Starting with the Windsor 302, you got 210 horses and 296 foot-pounds of torque, perfect for those who wanted just enough muscle to flex at the stoplight without scaring grandma. Its two-barrel Autolite carburetor fed that cast iron block like a steady diet of meat and potatoes. Basic, but satisfying. Step up to the Cleveland 351, and suddenly the party got louder. With 240 to 285 ponies on tap, depending on the configuration, this V8 offered torque like a heavyweight boxer's right hook. The CJ version, packing a 4-barrel Autolite carb and ram air, was the Cleveland after a few energy drinks. 11.7 to 1 compression meant it was built to rumble and demanded respect. Then came the big dogs. The 429 Cobra Jet and its Super Cobra Jet sibling, with up to 375 horsepower and a tire-melting 450 foot-pounds of torque. These weren't engines so much as sledgehammers under the hood. The Holley 4150 carb on the SCJ gulped air like it was training for a marathon, while ram air ensured every stomp of the pillow felt like kicking open the gates of Valhalla. If the engines were the Mach 1's muscle, the transmissions were its personality, deciding whether it strutted down Main Street or threw punches on the drag strip. Ford gave you plenty of ways to shift the Mach 1's attitude. On the automatic side, you had three flavors: the C4, the C6, and the FMX. The C4 was a lightweight scrapper, compact, efficient, and ready to rumble without much fuss. The C6, on the other hand, was the heavyweight champ, built to take the pounding from the big block 429s without breaking a sweat. The FMX sat somewhere in between, the middle child that didn't get as much fame but still did its job with quiet reliability. For those who thought real driving meant using your left leg, Ford's top-loader manuals were the golden ticket. The 3-speed top-loader gave you just enough control to feel connected, but the 4-speed top-loader was the crown jewel. Robust, precise, and built like it had been forged by blacksmiths who loved speed. It was the gearbox of choice for drivers who lived for the sound of a hard shift and the feel of raw torque ripping through the drivetrain. With options like these, every Mach 1 had its own flavor of fury. The 1971 Mach 1 may have been a muscle car, but beneath its swagger sat a chassis that knew how to handle the punishment. Built on a modified unibody frame, it combined rigidity with enough flexibility to keep all that horsepower from rattling your teeth out like a cheap carnival ride. Think of it as a heavyweight boxer who'd taken a few yoga lessons. Strong, but surprisingly limber when it needed to be. Up front, Ford gave the Mach 1 a coil spring independent suspension, complete with upper and lower control arms, coil springs, strut rods, tie rod ends, ball joints, and even an anti-roll bar. In simpler terms, it was like a well-choreographed pit crew working in unison, keeping the front end planted while still letting you wrestle the corners without feeling like you were piloting a runaway bull. The rear, true to muscle car tradition, stuck with the solid axle riding on semi-elliptical leaf springs and shock absorbers. But Ford knew this wasn't just any Mustang, it was a Mach 1. So upgrades like firmer springs and shocks were often included, and on big block cars, staggered rear shocks kept wheel hop at bay. It was brute strength with just enough finesse. Slide inside the 1971 Mustang Mach 1 and you were greeted with an interior that balanced muscle with a touch of civility. Standard equipment included high-back bucket seats that hugged you just enough to remind you this wasn't your dad's station wagon. A floor-mounted shifter gave drivers a sense they were commanding a fighter jet rather than just selecting gears, while a mini console with an ashtray and courtesy lights added a pinch of everyday convenience, because even muscle car drivers sometimes needed to light up or find their keys in the dark. For those wanting a little more swagger, the optional sports interior package turned things up a notch. Knitted vinyl high-back bucket seats gave extra style and comfort, while the deluxe 2-spoke steering wheel felt like it was the perfect helm for navigating asphalt seas. An electric clock reminds you that yes, time was still moving even if your right foot made it feel like it was standing still. Bright pedal pads and molded door panels added some flash, elevating the cabin from bare-bones racer to semi-luxury muscle. On the tech side, buyers could opt for a factory tachometer and gauges, power steering, power disc brakes, and even ram air induction. In short, comfort, control, and coolness all in one package. Out back, the Mach 1 carried one of Ford's greatest hits, the legendary 9-inch rear end. Known for being as tough as a junkyard dog and nearly impossible to break, it gave the Mach 1 the backbone it needed to handle everything from daily cruising to all-out drag runs. This setup also allowed for different flavors of differential depending on how wild you wanted to get. The standard open differential was fine for everyday use. Think of it as the casual Friday option, perfectly serviceable but not particularly exciting when the pavement got tricky. Step up to the traction and lock limited slip differential and suddenly your Mach 1 became a two-legged sprinter, putting power to both rear wheels during hard acceleration. No more embarrassing one-wheel peel when you lit up the tires at a stoplight. For the truly unhinged, Ford offered the Detroit Locker. Paired with a 4.11 axle ratio, this no-spin beast turned the Mach 1 into a tire-shredding, asphalt-scorching monster that didn't believe in compromise. Rolling stock came courtesy of E7014 white sidewall tires mounted on 7-inch steel wheels with hubcaps and trim rings. Stylish enough for Main Street, sturdy enough for a Saturday night at the drag strip. The 71 Mach 1 was no shrinking violet. It had presence and lots of it. Measuring 189.5 inches long, this Mustang stretched out like it was ready to claim every inch of blacktop between stoplights. At 74.1 inches wide, it had shoulders broad enough to make even modern SUVs nod in respect, giving it that aggressive stance that said, "Move over, I own this lane." Standing just 50.8 inches tall, the Mach 1 hugged the ground like a sprinter in the starting blocks. That low profile didn't just look menacing, it also meant better aerodynamics, or at least the kind of aero that muscle cars of the era cared about, slicing through air just long enough to reach the next quarter mile. With the 109-inch wheelbase, Ford found the sweet spot between stability and agility. It wasn't going to corner like a European sports car, but it wouldn't feel like piloting a school bus either. At a curb weight of 3,172 pounds, the Mach 1 had enough heft to plant all that V8 power without being a complete heavyweight. Think of it as the middleweight fighter. Solid, muscular, and ready to trade punches with anyone who dared to challenge it. The 1971 Mach 1 came with plenty of strengths, the kind that made it a legend in the muscle car era. First and foremost, power. With a buffet of V8s ranging from the respectable Windsor 302 to the thundering 429 Super Cobra jet, the Mach 1 could be tailored to anyone from the casual cruiser to the quarter-mile bruiser. Its styling was another strength. Aggressive, wide, and low-slung, it looked like it was flexing even when parked. Added the durable Ford 9-inch rear end, ram air induction, and optional traction lock or Detroit locker, and you had a car that didn't just walk the walk, it stomped it. But no muscle car is without its quirks, and the Mach 1 had a few. For starters, its size and weight made it more of a straight-line brawler than a nimble corner carver. Think heavyweight boxer. Fantastic at throwing haymakers, not so great at ballet. Fuel economy? Let's just say the Mach 1 drank like a sailor on shore leave. And while the interior offered some comfort and optional luxury, it wasn't exactly a Cadillac inside. Still, for drivers who valued raw attitude, rumbling exhaust, and sheer presence, the Mach 1's weaknesses were more like lovable flaws than deal breakers. The 1971 Mustang Mach 1 wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It showed up in an era when bigger meant better, horsepower was the ultimate currency, and subtlety was left to economy sedans. With its wide stance, muscular curves, and a stable of V8s that ranged from respectable to downright ferocious, the Mach 1 proved it could brawl with the best of them. Sure, it wasn't the most graceful dancer in the corners, and it guzzled gas like a linebacker at an all-you-can-eat buffet, but that was never the point. This Mustang was about presence, power, and pride, rolling Americana wrapped in steel and decals. So, here's a question for you. If you could park any version of the Mach 1 in your garage, which engine would you pick? The humble but capable Windsor 302, the rowdy 351 Cleveland, or the earth-shaking 429 Super Cobra jet? Drop your answers in the comments below. I'd love to hear which pony has your name on it. And if you enjoyed this ride through muscle car history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Retro Wheels Vault, and join me for more horsepower-fueled journeys. Until next time, keep it loud, keep it classic.